What is going on, everybody? My name is Blitzwinger, and of course, Infernites assemble! Or at least they will in a moment, which is why today we're going to be taking a look at Infernites Max. But, of course, before we take a look at the Infernites Max, which is of course a combination of Flame, Volk, and Zurch. I'm saying Zurch because it's Z-U-R-C-H, not Zorch, I guess, which I was saying sometimes, so my apologies about that. But nonetheless, of course, welcome on back to another Mixels review and the final review for the Infernites, which is of course Infernites Max. Now, before we assemble all three of these into Infernites Max, of course, I always try to showcase a little bit of the Mixels mix element for these guys right here. So, for example, what does that mean? That means that you could obviously take some of these Mixels and you could mix them with some of the Mixels, like for example, here's Shuff from the Cracksters family, or from the Cracksters group. You could take him and you could mix him and Flame into a design that you come up with, or of course I've also got a link in my description box where you can go to lego.com/mixels, I believe, and then you go into instructions. I'll just have the direct link for you guys where they have come up with some of their own versions. But honestly, in my opinion, you should be creative on your own and kind of, you know, experiment with by yourself. Like if you see a design and you're like, oh, okay, I really like this Mixel and I really like this Mixel, and then just mess around with it, you know what I mean? Just be like, well, okay. And this doesn't mean like, you know, taking just a foot off. This means that you could disassemble this whole head and then use, you know, a different color. Like you could use the yellows from the electrodes for this head in order to redesign it completely. Which is obviously, that's the whole point of being creative with these guys. So for example, I will go ahead and, well, you see, this is the problem though. Sometimes the legs don't want to come off. So for example, I could go ahead and grab the legs of our good buddy old pal Flame there. Come on, there we are. And then I could give those legs to Volk so he could be even shorter, which is quite funny actually. I'm sure he's not going to be too happy with that. Oh my goodness, this is always going to happen, isn't it? It's just every time that I'm going to do this, every time that I'm going to record this, the arms and everything is just gonna go flying. It's gonna be like, I'm not gonna listen to you. That is a horrible idea. Okay, there we are. So, now let me just clip those in. So I'm just showing you kind of the most basic level of mixing that you can do, which is, you know, literally just taking parts and switching them around. Well, kind of looks cool like that actually. I kind of like that quite a bit. And obviously by switching the parts around and such, you can get different personas just by doing that. However, if you want to go further, as I said before, you can completely disassemble certain Mixels and get completely other designs from them as well, which is quite lovely indeed. And you could do the same with the arms. Some characters are a little more limited. For example, for Zurch, you can't really take off his arms easily, so you would have to, like, you know, carefully remove this, then remove the arms, which is a bit more of a complicated process indeed. But honestly, it's still not that complicated to where even a kid wouldn't be able to pull it off. And at the end of the day, the most important part is just to have fun and kind of customize things to your own liking. But now that we've taken a look at some of the mixing and matching kind of elements of the Mixels, of course, which in my opinion is what makes them really, really awesome and what really sets them apart from a lot of other toy lines. And honestly, now it's time to assemble the Infernites and put them together into Infernites Max. So why don't we go ahead and do that, shall we guys? So I'm just going to do that real quick and we will take a look at Infernites Max. Ta-da! Infernites Max! My oh my, is this guy absolutely awesome. Of course, you can definitely tell that he is quite a fantastic looking Max Mixel indeed. Quite a bit of awesome details, of course, with the flames on his ears, on his back here, and his mouth. So overall, flame massacre, I guess, all over the place. Now, one thing that, again, just like with Electroids Max, who's right here actually, I was kind of surprised, and I guess it's just my expectations. For some reason, I thought he would be a little bit taller. His feet kind of surprised me, the fact that they were quite this short. But then again, his torso is quite long, as well as his head is quite ginormous. So I guess that those two kind of body parts make up for his scale. As you can see, he's still quite a large Max figure. He is definitely taller than Electroids Max. He's not quite as wide, as you can see. But at the same time, he is definitely a substantially large amount taller. Now, would I have preferred some more articulation on the feet? That would have been certainly fantastic, but they do make up for it by giving you plenty of articulation in the arms. You can get a lot of mobility out of the arms here, which is fantastic. I mean, you got 1 point of articulation here, then you've got another point right here at the wrist, but then on top of that, of course, he also has articulation in the fingers, which I believe this came from Volk, was it? I'm quite sure it was. But yeah, that is quite a cool detail indeed, and I do like how you can see certain elements coming through from each of the Mixels here. I mean, you got the arms from Volk. I guess it's kind of like, it's hard to pinpoint anything else except for that, but you could have, of course, kind of argued that the flames look similar to how they do it in Flame's design. Maybe the eyeballs, similar to what Zorch has going on, or Zorch has going on. My apologies about mispronouncing his name again, but I do like that quite a bit. And overall, he's a really fun build. I would say that he's a little bit more fun to assemble than Electroid's Max was, just because there's the torso here is really, really intricate, and there's a lot of cool elements built into it. So I really enjoyed assembling Infernites Max quite a bit indeed as well. Of course, we've got the flames, as I pointed out. I love how he's got the flaming eyebrows, so I guess they all share different types of eyebrows. We've got Electroids with the electric eyebrows, we've got Infernites with the flaming eyebrows, so that's quite lovely indeed. But on top of that, he's also got the ability to munch! Nom nom nom! So for example, he's like, oh, look at that, there's a delicious Mixel over there. Let me eat it. And then he has, I guess, like a flaming burp coming out after that. So that's quite cool indeed. So he could actually grasp down and clasp down, I should say, on an Mixel, which is quite lovely. Now, the only thing is, because of this flame, he's not able to close his mouth fully, but what you can do is, if you carefully remove this, then he will be able to close his mouth far more down. So if you want to display him in this way, that's a possibility as well. And then if you want to display him with his flaming ability coming through, you can obviously, I'm trying to be gentle here. You can obviously still display it quite well. It's just that it's not going to close down and clasp down quite as much as you would, or you might want it to be. Of course, you could also use his eyeballs to do some expressions. You know, he could look up, and then you could also open up his mouth for further effect, so that's quite lovely indeed. But the only other thing that I would point out is, do not put the flames this way, so do not put them like that, because what will happen then is when you close the mouth down, you're actually closing and pressing on this, and you could push it by mistake too hard to where you might start deteriorating the piece, or even worse, just break it completely off, which would obviously not be good at all. But nonetheless, overall, a very fantastic design. Now, as always, before we conclude the video, I will also show you what I managed to assemble out of all the parts that were left over, or majority of the parts that were left over from these guys, and that is this Mixel. Wha-blam! Yep, he was very difficult to assemble, I would say, because there were no parts for me to use as legs, so I had to like improvise. I was like, okay, what am I going to do for the legs? Like, there's no way to make this guy stand. So I don't know, I'm going to call him like Flame Eyes, but I want you guys to come up with the name for this guy. That's what I want to do. From now on, every time we do a Max review, I'll come up with a Mixel of my own, like kind of, you know, my own design, and then I'll let you guys name him. So if you see a name that you like, give it a thumbs up in the comments, and if you want to name him yourself, then of course, use the comment section below to let me know what you would think this guy's name should be. I did kind of stick to some asymmetrical designs here, as you can see. For example, this shoulder is a little bit different to this shoulder. Also, on top of that, we've got the... I use kind of like the last flame that we have, kind of as a sword or something like that, so that's quite cool indeed. I was actually thinking of pointing it first maybe like this, so it's almost like he's firing the flame, kind of like a flamethrower, so he could do that as well. And then on this arm, I actually kind of assembled like a little blaster. He's got a 2-point articulation here, which is quite lovely. So you could rotate this, and then this is kind of his blasting mechanism. This is where the laser would come through, and then this is crosshairs, which he can use to aim, which is, I know it's quite imaginative, but I really was just like, okay, what can I do? Because I built up the torso and I was like, okay, well, this is certainly coming together quite a bit, but I didn't have a way to have him stand, so I had to improvise and just basically come up with like the basic square pieces to use those as feet in order to keep him sturdy enough. But that being said, of course, come up with a name for this little fella down in the comment section below, and of course, there you guys have it. That is the review for the one and only. That's an awesome look right there. Infernites Max. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and of course, now stay tuned for some Craigsters reviews coming your way. Of course, we've got Crater, Shaft, Sizemo to review, and that is going to be quite lovely indeed. So with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you all next time, and have a fantastic day. I'll see you later, alligators.